You might be surprised that his name took so long to say. There's a lot going on with the Gold Glover at shortstop for this year, but I'll take Anthony Volpe. And I think part of the hesitation is that Volpe could be a big trade piece for a player like Juan Soto, who we had mentioned, potentially high level starters and players. You know, if you want to dream about Mike Trout, which I don't think is reasonable, Volpe is probably a piece in that trade. But we're being optimistic with the return for Soto. You have to look at what 1 year guys get back. I think a solid starting pitcher as well as a few prospects will get it done. Anthony Volpe is too high of a prospect, despite his below average offensive year and well above average defensive year. Whether he was deserving of the Gold Glove and how you value Gold Glove is a different scenario, but he was definitely very solid at shortstop this year. Someone who, throughout the course of the season, once he got through some of the nerves, someone who we can really rely on. There are definitely a few approach and potentially mechanical things that he has to figure out with his swing. He was someone who was looking at plus contact, and even plus power for a small guy. And it didn't seem to work out this year despite his 20 homer season. I mean, someone who we have hopes for stealing 50 plus bases one day, hitting just above 200 and getting on base even, definitely below 300, is not what we want from a player. You know, we want to see at least an on base of 320, 350, get that OPS above 100, which is where he teetered out all year. So I'll pencil in Volpe for shortstop, hopefully for this year and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I mean, it's a difficult one in the sense that it was hard for us to get there immediately. But at the same time, like I don't see them moving away from him and giving Peraza that chance right off the bat. I think at this point they feel pretty comfortable with Volpe as a shortstop. We just need to see more growth in year two. That's the big thing is watching his plate discipline pump up a little bit, watching his K rate go down a little bit. You know, bat to ball skills definitely need to improve. I would like to see more stolen bases because he started to taper off towards the end of the season. Like he started off really hot stealing bags, and then he just kind of lost that tool for a while. That being said, he could easily provide you a 30-40 season at some point in his career. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe you look at numbers comparable to like a Curtis Granderson's, honestly, on the offensive side for his ceiling. So that would be pretty cool to see. That being said, yeah, I think that he's completely locked in as shortstop as of right now. And that leads me into a veteran who we've been not really wanting to talk about because there's been a lot of controversy about him so far this offseason, and that is Giancarlo Stanton. I don't see them being able to move him this year. I think that is going to, if it does get to that point in the future, it's going to have to happen later down the road. Because I think he still has control until 2028. I want to say he's under contract until then. So that is quite a bit of time to pay someone that big of a contract. I can't expect him to be any worse than he was this past season. My expectations for his play are pretty low right now, but I also do see him as a guy that is set to at least be able to bounce back. I don't know. It still needs to translate on field, but you can't imagine that he's just not working and training this offseason to get better. So, I mean, he's going to be our DH a lot of the time, and we'll see how injury prone he really is this year.
Yeah, this is a tough pick because I did a bit of a sigh as I was typing him into the sheet because Giancarlo Stanton is on the books for $32 million next year. It was one of those middle value clump deals. After that, he'll be below 30 million for the remainder of his contract. That gives us $16 million left to play from having Stanton on the roster. And the reality is that Giancarlo Stanton does not have any decent trade value. There's teams that would take him. The teams that can afford to take him are probably going full throttle on Shohei Ohtani, someone who they can get a 2-for-1 deal on clogging a DH, which Giancarlo Stanton ultimately does, as well as an elite level starting pitcher, despite his injury for this year. Stanton, you hope to get 110 games out of. Someone who I think is a really underrated Yankee all time. The money is not his fault. The Yankees didn't even give him that contract, but they knowingly acquired it. Everyone thought it was big at the time. It was risky to commit to it. He's definitely gotten unlucky with injuries, but there are undoubtedly process things that he does, being a unicorn in just how he plays and in his mechanics of his swing, in terms of how they managed him playing the outfield. That, Brian Cashman made a really stupid comment openly about saying that injuries are a part of Giancarlo Stanton's game. And that comment is stupid because Brian Cashman is a leader. He's the general manager of the Yankees. And also, Stanton's agent is the same agent that represents Yamamoto, I believe. So that was just ill-advised. But the reality is true. Like, and Brian Cashman, for better or for worse, is being honest, where that is a factor in Giancarlo Stanton's play. Last year, I don't know if you were with me. I don't think you were, but I went to the game where Stanton hit his 400th career home run. Stanton had two really ugly strikeouts starting the game, was getting relentlessly booed the entire game. Then he hits his 400th home run. He gets standing ovation. And then in the ninth inning, he rolls over to short, doesn't even make it halfway down the line before he's thrown out, gets booed again. And that's kind of Stanton's game. And you hope for 1 for 4 with 3 bad at bats every game. But the reality is a lot of the time it's worse. You just hope that the Yankees lineup does not force Stanton to be hitting third or fourth in the lineup day in, day out. Hopefully fifth, maybe sixth. But yeah, I think we should pencil him in.
Yeah. I mean, listening to that last little note about watching him that game, I mean, we did also go to the game where Judge hit that towering shot. Well, Stanton hit the was that the walk-off?
The
Grand
walk-off
slam?
grand slam after
And he
Judge's
was 0 for
60th
4
homer.
with 4 Ks, I
Yep.
believe, before that. So, like, that's the duality of a man right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. Hopefully, we don't get Joey Gallo like production out of him at the DH spot. Have to hope he turns it around. This is where it's going to get a little bit interesting because we're going to try to clear some payroll, right? So I think that it's time to trade Gleyber Torres for a starting pitcher, Braxton Garrett, from the Miami Marlins. I think this is a match that's made in heaven. Braxton's a younger lefty pitcher that had like a 3.3, 3.4 ERA last season with a 1.14 whip. Has very high upside, and Gleyber is bound to make $14 to $15 million next season. I believe something along those lines. He had a fantastic season last year, but at the same time, the Yankees have not engaged with him at all regarding contract extension talks. The tea leaves are kind of there. It's time for him to go somewhere else, have a change of scenery, and for him to flourish. And I think Miami's the perfect market for him to do so while also clearing some money seriously for the Yankees that they dearly need off the books to make these deals work.
Yeah, I was going to say before you even jumped into it, Giancarlo Stanton puts us at $16 million left, and we're looking at balancing the books. Gleyber Torres, his projected arbitration from Fangraphs is 15.3 million. So we would have to pay about 6 players illegally to meet the roster, to meet the salary cap that we have set for ourselves to make that work. And I think that's the inevitable move. If the Yankees are looking to fill in the outfield where there's desperate need, we're looking at paying a combination of Juan Soto, Jung-Hoo Lee, and Aaron Judge $80 million, the 3 of them together next year. And we have a surplus of infield right now. And Gleyber, this is a really tough conversation with Gleyber Torres because it's hard to say that you don't have a big sample when he has 500, 600 plate appearances every year for 6 years with the Yankees. But you have the COVID season, you have the shortstop experiment, you have the inconsistency when he's been in trade talks. And he's probably going to get somewhere between 15 and 17 million in arbitration this year. The Yankees would have to lock him up to a long-term deal. At least his agent has to be clamoring for it. The only thing is that he loves New York and maybe he accepts a very team-friendly deal. But you have DJ LeMahieu on the books. You have Peraza and Volpe behind, guys who are higher value at the place of surplus. He was the only consistent hitter in the lineup last year, and it's tough to get rid of. But I do think this is a reality that the Yankees need to look at. And if we're actually surplusing at these positions with free agent and trade acquisitions like Lee, like Soto, this is where we can afford to go out. And I do think this is Gleyber's time. And we're also trading, um, you know, Luis Arias was the worst defensive second baseman in baseball last year. He was a great hitter. I mean, he hit around 350 the entire year. His OPS wasn't great, and his defense was terrible. You slide Arias over to first. Gleyber plays a very serviceable second base. They are only locked into him for 1 year. You get Braxton Garrett on the veteran minimum. I think this is a really good move for the Yankees, and now it supplements ideally a 6-man staff. So it's a tough move. Hate to see Gleyber go because he showed some signs of consistency last year, but I think this is when and how we can make this trade, because he's at a high and we can't bank on him doing that again.
Exactly.
All right. That's a tough band-aid to pull. Really tough band-aid to pull. I'm going to lock in Braxton Garrett.
You just mentioned second base, kind of third base. We need a utility player because DJ is a little bit more limited than he used to be. That utility player is Brendan Donovan. And for Brendan Donovan, you're going to give away a few pitchers. You're going to give away a Randy Vasquez. You're going to give away a Johnny Brito. And then you're also going to give them Oswald Peraza.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm going there because it just does not feel like the Yankees are going to give him a proper shot at securing his position at third base or shortstop or second. Every time he gets on the field, it just seems like they want to minimize the time he's out there. I think that Brendan Donovan provides the perfect lefty bat that this team needs. That he's a high on base guy. OBP was around 380 or 390 last season. I think he fits this team to a T. He's young, he's controllable, he's going to be cheap. It's just a matter of giving up the prospect capital and then also giving up the major league ready talent, which the Cardinals desperately need. Even though that they just signed Sonny Gray and they had, Kyle Gibson and now Lance Lynn on the books for this season, they need younger, crisper pitchers and guys that can potentially be swingmen as well. And there's rumors out there that Steve Matz might be on the trade block at some point or another. So I can easily see Brito and Vasquez or Vasquez slotting in perfectly in one of those guys' places. And then Peraza is a top 100 Yankees prospect. So I see it working out quite well. But what do you think?
I like it. I think the return might be hefty, if I'm being honest, to the Dodgers. To the Cardinals rather. Though he is on a pre-arbitration deal. His stats of recent were solid. I mean, you're talking about a guy you can pencil in for 100 games, an OPS, above between 750 and 800. But that defense is really what contributes to him and his versatility, obviously. In just 126 games for the 2022 Cardinals, Donovan had a 4 WAR. And that is because of his defensive prowess, despite only hitting 5 home runs and having 45 RBI. He got on base at a very high rate, almost 400 that year, and he backed that up this year, getting on base over 360. And you're looking at someone like Gleyber Torres, who refined his approach this year, more contact, but he still never got on base at a very high level, whereas Donovan does that. And then you mentioned Peraza. I think the Yankees are not very hellish on his bat. Donovan is an MLB proven bat. You hope that Peraza would one day get to the level of Donovan's offensive production. Peraza's shining skill is his defensive arm and his range. And I don't know, the Yankees aren't willing to put him at shortstop. I think Peraza could be a shortstop for the Cardinals, potential area of need for them. And Donovan, I don't see them re-signing. The only thing for the Cardinals, you gave a hefty return, but he's under team control from the Cardinals for 4 years. So you're getting 4 years of Brendan Donovan, someone who is a utility. You can lock him into second base for this year, but you can also give DJ reps there. He can play third. He can play the outfield and supplement when you need. So I do like the trade. I think if Peraza is included, you can get away with just a Randy Vasquez and a Peraza. Who is the third that you included in there?
Johnny Brito.
Johnny Brito.
Yeah. That it's more like an either or situation for Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez. Like it's
Mhm.
very much so an overpay if you give them both, but at the same time, they might warrant one because I think that a lot of people are going to be inquiring about Brendan Donovan. Um, it's also just he's been highly touted for a while now. There's a lot of upside there. And you're paying for, like you said, the control. And controllable years is the biggest thing in the trade market.